thanks everyone for joining. Hello and welcome to this online chat and demo with ShipStation and DHL on how to go global with your e-commerce business. My name is Mark Van Brie and I'm the Global Director of Partner Marketing here at ShipStation. I'll be your host and hope to keep things running smoothly on this webinar. We're excited to have our friends at DHL join us here at this event. I appreciate their time to share their expertise in global shipping here for everyone. Before we get going, I wanted to share a couple of housekeeping notes just to make sure everyone's on the same page. So all attendees are muted, but you will have an opportunity to ask questions at any time during the chat. Your questions can be submitted via the Q&A box on your Zoom panel. So just making sure you don't have to wait until the Q&A time at the end of the webinar. Feel free to submit your question at any time. We've actually already had a few questions coming in from the registration page as well. We'll tackle as many of those questions during the Q&A section at the end as well. If you have any technical questions or audio problems or anything else, feel free to drop those in the Q&A as well. We'll do our best to answer those directly. Zoom has some help articles as well if you need any help. There's also the ability to call in if you have any internet audio problems. Lastly, this webinar will be recorded and we'll email you when it's available for viewing. So with that, what are we talking about today? So we're going to start really with the lay of the land. It's a global marketplace, and we'll briefly dive into what that opportunity really is. Then we'll cover a few basics on how to get started with selling and shipping across borders and how DHL Express and ShipStation work together to get you there. And that's all before we show you a live demo of DHL from within ShipStation with all the relevant settings and configurations. It's really a great view as to see how easy it is to get started. Then we'll end up with an open Q&A where we'll answer your questions. So with that, let's meet our speakers for today. We're glad to welcome our guest from DHL Express, Rachel McGarry. Rachel is the head of business development and strategy for digital platforms at DHL. A seasoned e-commerce technology and international logistics leader, she brings valuable insights, including here on this webinar, to merchants looking to expand their businesses into new markets. Rachel lives in Tempe, Arizona, but I believe she's currently joining us from an international location in Mexico. And then from the ShipStation side, we have Devin Avery. Devin's the Senior Sales Manager Growth Accounts at ShipStation. And for the last 6 years, he's had a few roles here at ShipStation, including looking over Canadian accounts. So he knows the deal about international shipping as well. Devin has 10 years of experience in SaaS and carrier experiences, and he's really one of our best demo presenters. So I'm saying you'll be in for a treat once we get into the demo. Now, before we get into the meat of the presentation, before we get to the speakers, I did have a quick audience question. There's 2 questions that will pop up, and we'd love your feedback on that, just to see who we have on the call. So I'm launching an audience poll. We'll probably give about 30 seconds or so for folks to answer. If you see the questions pop up, feel free to answer. We see a couple of folks already answering. Nice. The answers are starting to flow right now. We'll give it maybe 10-15 more seconds for folks to participate, and we'll go from there. Nice. I'm seeing dozens of answers flowing in, so it's great. We'll leave it open for a couple more seconds, and we'll go from there. All right. So I'm going to close it in 3, 2, 1. All right. And let me share the results here. So I'm hoping everyone can see the results. It looks like we have a really good amount of folks already shipping internationally, which is great. I think we'll definitely see a few pain points pop up around the process. As you can see, what's holding you back. lots of customs duties and taxes, and we'll definitely go into that, how to make that easier. Shipping costs, regulations, we see a good mix of things here. So I think you'll find on this call some great information on how to deal with some of these pain points, especially when we go into the live demo and really see how that works within ShipStation with DHL Express. So thank you everyone for sharing. And with that, without further ado, I'll hand it over to Raish, and she'll first cover some of the opportunities of expanding your sales abroad. Raish, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Mark. And thank you to the whole ShipStation crew. I'm really delighted to be here with you. So I want to start, let's talk about the exciting part of this, which is international expansion. And what that really is really tapping into growth opportunities. So in a season where growth has really been harder to come by for many reasons due to inflation or any number of the macroeconomic events happening in the globe, putting pressure on just making ends meet, it's so important to explore ways to grow. And one of those really significant levers is entering into new markets. So I think it's time, there's times that we forget that the 95% of the world's population is outside of the United States, right? Looking at that opportunity. So this next slide, keep it here, Mark. I want to take a look at a few of the key growth markets. There are two key numbers next to each of the countries listed here. One is the number of online buyers, which, as you know, has had an impressive adoption growth right over the pandemic that is sustained. And the other is the buyers that regularly buy outside of their home country. So they are becoming more used to buying, like I said, outside of their normal country. So former barriers like access to internet or secure payments have been solved over time or continue to be solved for. And the opportunity continues to expand. So I'll pause a moment. I want you to take this slide in. Take a look at what markets you might be looking into or might have selling already or not selling into. There are a lot of big numbers out there, and it's just really the highlights. Typically, US merchants who are beginning their international expansion look towards English-speaking, credit card accepting countries. So countries like the UK and Australia, excuse me, really stand out. But you'd be surprised at the barrier of entry going into countries within the European Union, let's say, which has more online buyers than the US, right? That's impressive. So there's a lot less barriers than you think, as long as you have the right partner. So we're really excited to be there, but that really cements the why. Why are we doing this? Because there's growth opportunity and we want you to help you get there. Now let's learn a little bit more about the expectations of those global customers. So if you can, thank you. So just like us, they want or demand a really great delivery experience. 91% of those buyers are looking to see what options they have before checkout. 58% will abandon a cart because of higher than expected shipping rates. And more than 50% abandon the cart because there's limited options. So maybe they're looking for an express or a quicker service, and all they have is something maybe, I have my party's on Saturday. I need to get it here sooner, or else I'm not going to shop at that store. So I think that's something that we see. And then lastly, merchants reward positive delivery experience with brand loyalty. So the value of that customer continues to grow because they come back and they come back again, twice as likely to come back when they have a good delivery experience. And we want to help you achieve that, not only enter into those markets, but do it with excellence. So let's go on to the next one. Because we've established the opportunity, we have an idea of what the customer is looking for globally. I want to look at what DHL Express does to help you open up those markets easily and profitably. So in the simplest terms, DHL Express will get your product to your customers within 2 to 3 days for most international destinations. We provide door-to-door delivery. And I want to take a minute to unpack that for a moment, because I feel like that phrase is said quite a bit. For that, door-to-door means that it doesn't leave our network. So by comparison, many postal networks pass shipments from one postal carrier to another. And our closed loop network keeps it all in-house throughout the globe. What that means for you and your customers is that your product is secure and that you have full visibility the entire time. So I want to show you what that means and how that looks on the next slide. So this, what we're going to is on-demand delivery. That's a delivery management tool your global customers will interact with directly to make sure that they have an amazing delivery experience. So as soon as we pick up, we being DHL Express, picks up the package from you, there's a text or an email sent directly to your customer, letting them know it's on the way. Then giving them options to manage the delivery options. So maybe they want to pick it up at a local store or a locker, which is actually very, very popular in Europe, or maybe they need to hold it while they're on vacation. They can manage that delivery without ever contacting you, the merchant, right? They don't have to try to establish that through you. They can do it directly with us and ensure that they get it the first time. So all that, towards the end, you'll see that there's a picture verifying that we placed the package where it was supposed to be. So all of that is enabled really in the phone or an email of your customer globally. Now, I want to acknowledge that this sort of technology, you might be used to this experience just as a consumer in the United States, a seller, but the key differentiator is up at that top right. That top right corner tells you that there is a consistent experience for on-demand delivery globally across 166 countries, and it's localized into 45 different languages. Meaning, so if you start selling into Japan, your customer is going to be notified through their phone or WhatsApp or whatever they're using. They're going to get a Japanese experience without you having to do anything. So that's the power. They get the visibility, the control, and a local experience through on-demand delivery. And the last piece of this that I want to go over, I want to make sure that you're aware of is the advanced duty collection. So yeah, there you go. We got it. This is important because currently, all DHL Express shipments going through DHL for ShipStation are sent DTU. That stands for duties and taxes unpaid. And depending on where you're sending your product and how valuable your product is, there will likely be some sort of a tax upon entry into that country. So with advanced duty collection, your customer will be notified directly from us and tell them the amount that would be owed and the ability to pay so that it can be quickly released through customs and arrive without a hitch. Just to clarify, if you have your own account or pre-negotiated rates, you would have a duty and taxes paid option. So that I just don't want to confuse these two products, but for the ShipStation, DHL Express through ShipStation, it's all DDU, and 100% of your customers buying globally would interact with on-demand delivery and have the ability to do this for you. So if you're looking to, let's go to the next one, Mark. If you're looking to dip your toe into international waters, so to speak, I highly recommend enabling DHL Express in your ShipStation account. It offers up to 81% discount on our book rates or the retail rates, and is accompanied by our standard paperless customs documents, which means you don't have to print all too much. You kind of just print the label, and everything else is, for the most part, printed or sent electronically. Easily scheduled pickups. It's a really wonderful experience. I want to make sure that that's a big one. And if we go to the next slide, I want, before we pass you off to Devin, because I'm really excited to tell you all the great things about DHL, but the special sauce in this is to say, great, that's what it is, that's why it's important, but really how to use it. But before I send you over to Devin, I want to pause and really encourage you to start small. International, going to 220 countries out of the gate is a bit much. So I would encourage that to take a measured approach. Take a moment to do some research on the markets you want to go into. Review, and we'll point to see some of these sources and partners that we work with as well. Review any sort of regulatory requirements that you might have for your products being sent into any of those locations. You know, one thing that's fun is take a look at your website analytics. So if you're going into Google, go see if you might be getting organic demand outside of the United States without maybe even noticing it. So I would recognize where your product and where your brand has some natural demand outside of the United States and lean in. So that's the start small, choose the right partners. And I think you're looking at a lot of them right now. So I'm really excited you're here. And that's the simplest way to start. And we're here to support you every step of the way. So now let's get Devin into the conversation and show you about how to do that.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Rach. Okay, so before we hop into the live demo, there's a couple of things that I want to touch on just real quick. The first one is, if I can draw your attention to the middle of the screen here, we have this image. Two shipping options. Basically, it shows you the process of shipping and creating labels. The first one on top there is a domestic shipping option and the domestic shipping process and what that looks like. As you guys see and you guys are familiar with, for a domestic shipment, you drop a package off with the carrier takes it to the distribution center to sort the package. Of course, the carrier drops it off at their destination. With international shipping, however, one major difference is that customs. So after the package is picked up by the carrier, flies overseas to the destination country, it's then taken to customs, where the package is then sorted, of course, to make sure that it's meeting certain regulatory taxes and any other in regards to the product itself, any other things that may be associated with that product as it comes to the international market. And so one of the things that Ray touched on earlier is with DHL actually owns the entire delivery from pickup to its destination country, to its destination location, right? So once that package is dropped off to DHL, you guys don't have to worry about where it's at, where it is in location. You guys have full tracking and full visibility of that, compared to other carriers, which may, once the package arrives in customs, arrive at its destination country, passes the package off to the local post office, and then from there, visibility is essentially lost. And so, as we go through the live demo, I really want you to start to think about that. Think about the customs piece, think about that customs aspect and why we're optimizing the ShipStation account for those international shipments. And then also, the other thing that I want to touch on real quick is that poll earlier. One of the things that really stood out to me is there are quite a few people on this call right now that are currently shipping international. And then the ones that are not shipping international, or the ones that are maybe a little bit hesitant to expand their footprint even further internationally, is because of regulations. I saw that one mentioned quite a bit. Regulations, duties and taxes, customs, right? So as we go through the ShipStation demo, we're going to talk about how ShipStation can help optimize some of those settings, how we can help automate them, how we can set up presets to where you don't have to worry about going through and doing it for each package. We'll talk about how that's done in ShipStation. So main things that I'm going to show in the demo are, one, how to enable your DHL account, how simple that is. Two, how to set up some of those international settings so that we have a smooth transition through customs. Three, how to utilize automation rules in ShipStation to automate some of these shipping settings. And then four, we'll talk about printing labels, tracking your shipments, and then of course, scheduling pickups as well. Okay. Excuse me. Excuse me. Okay. All right. With that being said, let's go ahead and hop in. All right. So this is my test ShipStation account. My test ShipStation account has been optimized for international shipping. And I'm going to show you what that means here. The first thing that we want to do, like I mentioned earlier, is enable DHL on your ShipStation account. For that, you would just head up to here to the ShipStation account settings. Once there, on the far left-hand side of the page, you'll click on shipping, and then you'll click on carriers. Now, whenever it comes to adding carriers in ShipStation, of course, you have two options. You can either add your own carrier account, or you can take advantage of the carrier accounts that we option, and more specifically this one here, DHL. DHL, once you create a ShipStation account, it's automatically available on your ShipStation account. In order to get it and optimize it, to utilize it, you would just have to hit this toggle right here. Once you hit that toggle, DHL is now available as a carrier, and you have up to 81% off of those DHL Express shipments, right? So first thing is enabling DHL. Account settings, hit the toggle. DHL is now enabled on your account. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to set up some of those international shipping settings that I spoke of earlier. So once you're in the account settings on the far left-hand side of the page, all you do is just click on international settings, and this will take you to the international settings section here in ShipStation. Now, the information that's displayed right here is the information that will be sent to customs, right? And if you recall earlier, this customs information will be sent electronically, so you don't have to worry about printing it out. But the information that's displayed here will appear on every single order as it's being imported into ShipStation, right? This default customs information. You have a couple of options as far as whether or not you want this information to appear on every order, or if you want to go through and do it manually. But the main point of ShipStation is making sure that we streamline your shipping process. So for me, my shipping is really simple. This customs information applies to every single order that imports into my ShipStation account. So I'm able to come in here and make adjustments to either the content type, delivery options as far as sending signatures go, customs declarations, where I want those created from, and then my signature as well. So once I fill in all this information and save it, this information will now appear on every single one of my shipments as they import into ShipStation. But then, of course, I have the option to go through and change each one of them individually, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Now, another one that I want to touch on here real quick are the tax identifiers. So, of course, tax identifiers, if you are familiar, you would fill them in here. If you're not, essentially what tax identifiers are is they're used to identify your business and your tax activities for your business, right? So certain countries have tax identifiers that they utilize, and those tax identifiers vary from country to country, right? Some countries require a tax identifier. And so one of the things that I highly encourage you guys to do is we have in ShipStation, in our knowledge base section, help.shipstation.com, we have one of the most extensive, well put together knowledge base articles that you could possibly utilize. It goes over international shipping. It goes over different terms to be aware of, such as tax identifiers here. It's a complete guide on how to ship internationally here in ShipStation. And so I highly encourage you guys to take a look at that. And I think Mark is going to post that here in the chat. One of the sections in there is on tax identifiers. So what I want you guys to do, and what I highly encourage all of you guys to do, is if you're not shipping internationally, really research the customs information here. Really research the content type to make sure that you're filling out the correct content type. Really research the tax identifiers for the specific countries that you guys are shipping to, just to ensure a smooth delivery process. One of the things that Rach touched on earlier is customers want that smooth delivery process. A positive delivery experience increases the likelihood of repeat customers, right? On the flip side of that, a negative delivery experience has the opposite effect. And so we want to make sure, there's two things we want to make sure. One, we want to make sure that we get your package out of ShipStation, label created, out the door as quickly as possible. And then two, we want to make sure that we get it to your customers as quickly as possible as well. We want to make sure that we adhere to that 2 to 3 day delivery window that DHL prides themselves on. So highly encourage you guys to really research the customs information to make sure that you're filling that in correctly. And then also the tax identifiers, really focus on the countries that you're shipping to, what the specific tax identifiers are for those countries. And then of course, make sure that you're inputting this information here in ShipStation. Okay, and so now that we've set up our international settings, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some of the automation rules that we'll want to implement into your ShipStation account. So For those of you guys that are familiar with ShipStation, an automation rule, as the name suggests, is a rule that's used to automate your shipping process or certain shipping motions in ShipStation. For those that aren't familiar with ShipStation, think of an automation rule as an if-then statement, right? If certain criteria are met, then ShipStation is going to apply this action to that criteria, right? So one of the rules that I want to focus on here is real simple, international shipping. And I'll show you guys what that looks like here in a second. So in my ShipStation account, my international shipping is real simple. I just use one carrier for my international shipping. For my domestic shipping, I have different rules set up depending on where it's being shipped from, whether it's residential or whether it's commercial. I have a lot of different options as far as my domestic shipping goes. But for my international shipping, basically what I've done is I've created a rule in ShipStation that essentially says, if this criteria, meaning international order, is true, if this criteria is being met, then ShipStation will automatically apply DHL Express Worldwide as the shipping service, and then my default package type as the package. What this rule does is it ensures every single international order that's being imported into ShipStation will have DHL automatically applied as the carrier, right? So once again, we want to make sure that we're able to get labels as fast as we can out the door. And so one of the things that we don't want to do is we don't want to have to filter out and signal out international or domestic orders. We can streamline and optimize the entire ShipStation account to where everything is already populated, everything is pre-populated. There is the only manual work that's involved in creating a label is actually just hitting the create and print button, right? The way that we do that, especially for international shipments, are by setting up some of those international settings and then creating automation rules that automatically select the carrier. All the other, for those of you guys that are familiar with ShipStation, all of the other information in regards to the order itself will be imported into ShipStation, so we don't have to worry about that, meaning the items, the weights, and all that good stuff. The only thing that we want to make sure that we set up on the account are those international settings, and then of course rules that help us optimize those international settings. Okay, and so now that we've done that, let's take a look at a couple of different orders in ShipStation and how a domestic and an international order differentiates. So in ShipStation, this is my order grid here. Once again, ShipStation, what we pride ourselves on is speed. Of course, speed, seamless shipping process. Doesn't matter where you're shipping or how you're shipping. I have a mix of domestic and international orders in here. All I have to do is select all of them, create and print labels, and then I'm good to go. Right. For the sake of this demo, however, what I've done is I've actually filtered out just my international shipments. So you have a lot of flexibility in terms of this order grid, in terms of what you're able to see, what's visible to you, what columns are available. What I've done is I've just created a filter for my international shipments, just so that I can, since I'm new to this process, I'm just learning international, just dipping my toes in the water a little bit. I want to make sure I take a little bit more time to go through my international orders, make sure my customs information is all filled in correctly, make sure my harmonization code, which I'll talk about here in a second, has been inputted. And then of course, make sure that there's no issues, because the last thing I want is for any of these orders to get held up at customs. So what I've done is I've just filtered out my international shipments so that I can take a little bit of time on those. Just to show you guys a difference real quick between an international and a domestic order, there's a couple of things that I'm going to pinpoint. So for those of you guys that are familiar with ShipStation, if you just look at the page here, just look at the grid here, it looks really just like any other shipment that comes into ShipStation. Only difference, of course, here, the country is Canada, and then the address validated has a world icon rather than a building icon for a commercial shipment or a house icon for a residential shipment, right? So really small thing here, most people probably wouldn't notice. The biggest difference, however, as I scroll down on the orders grid, is this customs declaration section here, right? So this is a section that you'll want to make sure is filled out so that we can get the package to customs, get it through customs as quickly as possible, and then ultimately get it delivered to our customers. So for this customs information, I've automated this to where this information is going to populate. I don't have to fill anything here. Under the declaration section here, you have a couple of fields here that are mandatory, right? And those are the ones that have the red asterisk next to them. Those are the ones that you have to fill out in order for this label to be created. So the description, the quantity, the item value, right? The good thing about ShipStation, however, is this information will auto-populate for you depending on what settings you set up, either in your international settings or on the product default itself. So this information here, I don't have to worry about filling it out. This information is going to be populated for me. If for whatever reason this information doesn't get filled out, I wouldn't be able to create the label, but ShipStation will just throw an error back and say, hey, information missing from the declarations or quantity missing from the declarations, make sure that that's filled in. One area that I want to highlight here is the harmonization. So for those of you that are or are not familiar, harmonization, also called tariff code, this information here is not required, right? Because not every country requires it. However, most do, a lot do, right? A harmonization code or a tariff code, it's an internationally recognized code that's used for tax purposes, right? Some countries require them, some countries will not accept your package and pass it through customs without this code. I highly encourage all of you guys to include harmonization codes on every package that you're shipping. In I mentioned earlier, our knowledge base article or international shipping article, we actually have a very specific section in there, and I think Mark will post that here in the chat. We have a very specific section in there just on harmonization codes, what they are, how they're utilized, and then most importantly, where to find them at, right? You want to make sure that you do research to make sure that you're inputting the correct information in regards to your products. You want to make sure you're inputting the correct information in regards to that code. Just so, once again, I'm going to keep going back to it, just so we ensure that seamless delivery process through customers. I'm sorry, through customs, ultimately through your customers. And one of the things that could hold that up is not including a harmonization code because we think that the country that we're shipping to doesn't accept them. It's fine. I won't input it. 3 seconds of inputting this information can save you days of a bad customer experience, lost money because no repeat customers, right? So we want to make sure that this information is inputted on every international shipment. Now, it's not required. And once again, we want to make sure that you're not going through and inputting it in manually. And so there is a way that we can have this information auto-populated based off of the product itself, right? So I can set that up in ShipStation where essentially every time this product imports into ShipStation, the harmonization code that I add to the product will automatically be populated. And that's as simple as just clicking on the product itself, clicking on customs, and then entering the harmonization code here in this section. Now, every time I import this one particular product, my very expensive dragon eggs here, that harmonization code will automatically populate here in ShipStation. And there is a way to do this in bulk as well, so I don't have to go and do that for every item as it comes into ShipStation. Okay, and then now that we've added DHL, we've set up our international settings, customs declarations are all good to go, customs defaults are all good to go. Now it's time to create and print a couple of labels. So once again, in ShipStation, it's as simple as clicking on the checkbox here, clicking on this create and print labels option. Once we do that, then all of these orders now appear as shipments. So this section here is where I have a couple of my most recent shipments that have been created. So as you see here, tracking information is being generated. And then you'll see here one difference between a domestic and an international shipment is this customs forms column, right? So there's a couple of things that I want to highlight on an international label. So here's a DHL example. Let me zoom in on this waybill doc here. You'll see here that there's 2 sections, right? One, this paperless trade section here in the middle of the screen. that shows me that this information is actually being sent electronically to the country that I'm shipping to. So I don't have to worry about printing out any other documents and including those on the outside of the box. This information, the customs forms, customs declarations are all being sent electronically through customs. That's how we get packages through customs as quickly as possible, because it's all sent electronically. Before the package even arrives, they have that information already available, right? And then also the DTU. So as Rach had touched on earlier, DTU, this is where it's identified on the waybill itself that duties and taxes have not been paid just yet. However, of course, that information has already been sent to the customer. And so once it gets to customs and then ultimately through customs, once it gets through customs and ultimately through the customer, duties and taxes have been paid and the package itself has already been passed. With this customs form section, once again, you don't have to worry about printing out and doing anything really with the commercial invoice. However, we do include this in ShipStation for your own record keeping. So if you ever wanted to print it out for your own records, just for storing, or for whatever, any other reason, it's available here in ShipStation. And all you would have to do is just click on that, that PDF that I showed there, and then it's available for you. So this customs forms PDF here. Okay, and then last thing real quick. So once again, enable DHL, optimize our settings for international shipments, created and printed a couple of labels. Now it's time to schedule pickups. So in the shipments page, left-hand side under carrier pickups, here, if you click on schedule a pickup, all you would do is just click on DHL as the carrier. You would select your ship from location. I have a couple of different ship from locations on my account here. Pickup contact, pickup date, pickup window, and then you'll schedule a pickup. Once that pickup is scheduled, then of course you'll be notified DHL is on the way to pick up the package, and then you're good to go. Since we've optimized your account, DHL picks up the package, smooth process through customs, delivered to your customer, and yeah, now we have repeat customers. And so that's essentially it as far as the demo goes. I know it's probably tons of questions, so feel free to ask them here in the chat, and we'll go through some of them.
Thank you so much, Devin. That was great. And yes, we do have some questions that have come in. I think one of the main questions that have come in, and I think Rach, this might be a good question for you. How can you predict costs for duties and taxes? And are there any resources to research anticipated costs by country? What's the best approach there?
Yeah, good question. So step one of understanding how much, we call it a fully landed cost. So everything that might be another cost upon entry. The first step is to classify your goods, because that's how the international community will establish what the actual product is and the value of that product. So that's two key things that you'll need to and want to nail down. The next step and where to go for additional resources to get an estimate. I think there was one question that said a ballpark. We have a estimate, we call it TAS, Trade Automation Systems. That's something that I think, please someone put in the link, you're able to use that. Your help center, the help support dialogue had a couple of like the trade.gov. There are ways to classify your goods there. We rely on partners such as Zonos or Global E or any number of them that have the technology that predicts and understands, maybe prohibited goods going into certain countries or restricted in any way. So those are the things that I would encourage you to research. So we have our own, if you want, there's government sites that do it, and maybe those top two partners being Zonos and Globally, but there's a lot of them out there. So I would do some research on that too. Avalara is another one, but those are usually for larger larger, big customers. I'm not so sure how, like the breadth of how the catalog that you have for products. So if you want onesie twosies, that's the way to do it.
Great, thank you. Yes, and in the help articles that were posted in the chat, there's a lot of good resources there as well, and we're happy to maybe include some of those resources in the follow-up email after this webinar as well, so that folks can also check out DHL's resources as well.
Thanks, Mark.
So a few more questions come in. Devin, this might be a good question for you. I think you showed it a little bit on the demo, but does ShipStation validate international addresses?
Yes, so we do for specific countries. So we do for the countries that us ourselves, ShipStation, we're located in. We have a presence in, so Australia, Canada, France, Italy, Norway, Spain, and then there's one more off the top of my head that I cannot remember right now. But for very specific countries, we do, not for every country, however.
Thank you, Devin. I think we saw a couple of questions coming in regarding shipping to Africa. And I think some merchants were having maybe some visibility trouble with shipping to Africa or African countries. So maybe Raj, for you, I know we talked about ownership of the whole carrier, right? Which is a great benefit. But how is maybe DHL uniquely positioned to ship to African countries well?
I think the biggest is we have a dominant market share throughout Northern and Southern Africa, which gives us a local presence in those areas. So that gives us a step up above many competitors because it's a tough place to get to and reside in sometimes. So we can really provide the best-in-class service for our customers throughout the entire market. Security is sometimes an issue within Africa, or at least a concern that people have. And most of the locations, our locations, is what's called TAPA certified. So we have the highest degree of security certification globally in many of our locations within Africa, because security, like I said, is a really big deal, let alone being able to just get it through. So we have the certified locations in Africa, and because of our closed loop network, the package is going to, like you said, remain with us from pickup in the US to delivery in Africa. And we're confident that the experience that your African customers would have in that delivery would be far above what I know there was a couple of questions where it's like we've sent 3 and they all got lost. So, but they've never tried DHL Express, and I'd like to see you try, and I'd like to be able to shine for you in that way.
Thank you, Rach.
Yeah.
I think some more questions came in for HS codes, harmonization tariff codes. Devin, I think you're probably well suited to answer this question, especially within ShipStation. What if you're sending more than one product? Is there a way to add codes for all of these items? How would you handle that?
Yeah, of course. So you have a couple of options. Whenever you have a multi-item order that comes in ShipStation, basically, if you go back to my demo, each item will have its own customs declaration section, right? So you can either manually input it there. So I had, on my example, I had dragon eggs, right? Let's say I had dragon eggs and then I had socks. Basically, you can manually enter in customs declarations for each one of those individual products. However, the way that we can optimize it in ShipStation, well, really there are a couple of different ways, but basically we can import all of your products into ShipStation using a CSV file. So if you guys are familiar with ShipStation, on the products page, there's a section in there where you can actually import all of your products. So you can import your products with the harmonization code already attached to those products. And now let's say you have 1,000 different items that you're shipping out. You just import those into ShipStation, and then now that harmonization code will auto-populate on each one of those items.
Fantastic. Thank you. I think staying with you, Devin, for this next question, I think we had a couple of questions coming in. Can we, this one was particular for Shopify as well. Can we post back shipping cost to Shopify? And I think what is meant with that is, can we display those rates in cart, right? And I know we have a few integrations with some of the main platforms where we do in cart. So where we can display in-cart rates on checkout. Anything to add on that front, Devin?
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, so we could. So we can actually post back those rates to Shopify. Shopify is one of the selling channels that we do integrate, and we actually can communicate live rates back to. So yes.
Great. I just posted a quick help article on that as well. I believe it's Shopify, WooCommerce, Magento. There's a few platforms where we can display those rates in cart. So definitely possible. We had a few questions coming in, and I think this might be for both Devin and Raj. We had a few questions coming in about insurance as well. Should I add insurance to my international shipment? I think there's several options for that, right? Within ShipStation, and I believe DHL has some options as well. So Raj, I'll let you maybe talk about that first.
Sorry about that, on mute. So can you say that again for me? I must have missed it in my panic to hit the mute button. I missed the last part of what you said.
So insurance for international shipping.
Yeah.
I know there's a few options there. There's options within ShipStation. I know DHL has some options as well. So I'll let you talk about it first, and then
got it. Thank you. Sorry about that. We offer a product called SVP, which is value protection, and we are so you're able to add that within ShipStation as well. And Devin, I don't know if you have the opportunity, maybe we can send a link out to the group of where that is. We don't call it insurance, but it's effectively insurance for the US merchants. And then I believe, and you can kind of take it to the next answer for you guys. I forget the name of the one that you offer in as well.
Yeah, the insurance option that we offer in ShipStation is called Parcel Guard. So that's an option that we have. In regards to whether or not you should, of course, that depends on you and your business. Highly recommend it. I always do. Risk and reward, right? Insurance is one of those things where we never need it until we need it. And so, you have a couple of different options. Of course, the DHL carrier experience insurance or the Parcel Guard and ShipStation.
Yeah, Devin, you touched on a good point. It's really a personal decision, and usually the tipping point is the value of goods, right? Is to consider how much it is to lose it. Not just the value monetarily, but we work with a lot of companies that have custom made goods. So it's maybe a mug, but it's a special mug. So maybe it's not highly valuable, but it does have a picture of your family, or it does have a special, or it's an autographed something. Those types of considerations are really important to consider insurance as well.
All right. I think we have maybe time for one more question, and there's a lot more questions that have come in. I will say for all attendees, we will gather all of those questions. Rest assured, we'll submit those questions to our team to make sure that we have someone reach out to answer those questions for you. I know, Raj, you've been very active in the Q&A section already, answering a couple of questions. It's great to see all of these questions come in. Really appreciate it. I think we have maybe time for one more, and then we'll definitely gather all the questions and try to answer them post webinar as well. I think there was a question here from Alan around DTU, and if there are minimum thresholds before there's DTU owed, or is it for any shipment really that DTU are? So Rach, if you touch on that.
Yeah, it's called de minimis value. So in the United States, anything coming into the United States, there's an $800 de minimis. So anything that's valued under $800, there isn't any duties or taxes assessed when it comes in, which is why as people that live in the United States, we're not used to it. It's a very high threshold. But in Europe, in Canada, in many other desirable places to go sell into, that de minimis is much lower. Mark, what is it? What is it in the Netherlands? Do you know offhand? Put you on the spot.
That is a good question. I'm going there soon, so I'll find out. I believe
it may have been reduced completely, because that was a big change recently. But the point is, for everybody else, each country sets their own de minimis, and the lower you set it as a government, you get more money because you tax everything that comes in through the border. So the DTU is not a threshold. That's really just a way that you choose to have that delivery experience. So it's duties and taxes unpaid. What that means is that whatever tax it, if a US merchant sends something to Canada, DTU, that means that the Canadian buyer is likely going to have to pay something to their government in order to release that good. There's because I think theirs is much lower, around $50. But the point is that that's where you come out to it. I just had a friend ping me. Netherlands is 150 euro. We got it. We got your back, Mark. But the point is that the DTU, it's not a threshold necessarily. It is the de minimis is really the threshold of whether or not the government there is going to charge you to have taxes on anything coming into the country. So it's really important to go back and look into the countries that you might be exploring to go into and understand both what that de minimis is, and understand where your products are being priced, right? Because maybe there could be something, if you fall underneath that de minimis, that's easier for you and a better experience probably for your buyers internationally as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think that's all the time we have for today. Again, lots of great questions coming in. We'll try to answer those as we exit this webinar as well. So give us a little bit of time, and we'll have a team member reach out with some of those answers as well. But thank you so much, Devin. Thank you so much, Rage, for joining us here today. I thought it was very insightful. Great to see it live on the screen, how to actually go about and get those shipments out. Yeah, I really enjoyed seeing all of these insights today. Reach out to us if you have any other questions, and we'll be in touch soon with a recording and with answers to all your questions. But thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.